Alrighty, and welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and today we're going to be checking out some historic best of one with the new Jumpstart cards. We're going to be playing Reanimator. This is a archetype that received a lot of new tools actually from the Jumpstart Historic Horizons, and we'll single those out right now. That's not one of them. This one is, and this one is. These three tools actually make Reanimator kind of a force to be reckoned with. So the idea, of course, for those who don't know, is to get down and dirty with some large creatures. We do that via reanimation strategies, making them come out on turn 4 or turn 3, whatever we've got available to us at the time. So Priest of Fell Rites is the newest reanimation option in the format. 2 mana 2/2. So it has to survive, but if it does, you pay 3, then you sacrifice it, return a target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield, only as a sorcery. And then it also has an Earth of 5, which is not counterable by traditional counter spells. This comes out of play, and we pay 3, we sacrifice it, we reanimate a creature. So that gets around like, absorbs and Soit Cummings and things like that. The traditional counter spells, there are still a few that counter the triggers and things like that. I think Commit Memory is one of them. Tail's End is definitely another. So other than those cards existing, this gets around counter magic, which is definitely a thing, since Jeskai Control is the most popular deck in the format right now. We also got access to Bone Shards as well, which is a superb removal spell in this deck and in this format actually. 1 mana for a sorcery. As an additional cost to cast this spell, you sack a creature or discard a card. We're okay with both of those, and we'll get to why in a second. But then, once we've done that, for 1 mana, we get to destroy a creature or a planeswalker. That is disgusting. So, as far as sacking creatures is concerned, we've got lots and lots of sack fodder in here. Stitcher Supplier being kind of the main one. So 1 mana, 1/1, when it enters the battlefield or dies, mill 3 cards. So we really do want to be killing this when at all possible. But also, with the Bone Shards, we get the option of discarding a card. And one of the downsides sometimes of Reanimator is that instead of putting it in your graveyard, you end up drawing all of your threats. And Bone Shards helps us get around that, as does Faithless Looting and Thrilling Discovery. All of those help us dig through the deck at a absurd, alarming pace. And once we've got a creature in the yard, it's just a matter of when we reanimate it. Not if, because we will always be able to reanimate. We've also got Burial Rites here from one of the historic anthologies. I forget which one it is at this point. 5 mana, return a creature from your graveyard to the battlefield, and then it also has flashback of 3 and a white to cast it from your graveyard to do the same. So again, all of our milling, our Stitcher Suppliers and things like that, and our Maya Tritons, all of those can be putting reanimation spells into our graveyard, just the same as now that we have the Priest of Fell Rites. There is really no downside for the most part to mill our deck, because we can always draw the cards we're actually looking for. We want to be milling the reanimation targets, and now we can also mill the reanimation cards with a level of consistency. We got 2 copies of Serra's Emissary as one of the reanimation targets, and we'll get into all of those. This is a 7 mana 7/7 with flying. When it enters the battlefield, or as it enters the battlefield, you choose a card type, and then you and the creatures you control have the protection of the chosen card type. This is an auto win against decks like goblins, against decks like elves. Not necessarily goblins, I suppose, these days, because they've got Munitions Expert and occasionally Gem Palm Incinerator. Although, actually, no, because both of those, if you did protection from creatures, they couldn't target you either. So, yeah, you will just win the game if you get this out against goblins or elves, which, are very popular in Best of One right now. So, that's pretty nice. And there are many other options that you can get down the line as well. You can name Planeswalker against, Jeskai Control, against Tybalt's Trickery's list as well, so that Ugin can't target your emissaries. All it can do is -7, sweep the board, and then you reanimate again, something like that. We got Sheoldred, the Whispering One, my personal favourite reanimation card of all time, I think. 7 mana 6/6 with Swamp Walk, so it can't be blocked as long as your opponent controls a swamp. And at the beginning of your upkeep, return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So it's a recurring reanimation target there as well. So if you've got Sheoldred and you've got another reanimation target, and you're not afraid of Sheoldred just instantly dying, then she's the perfect target. And she also as well gets an upkeep trigger on your opponent's turn, which makes them sack creatures. So while our opponent is losing a creature, we're gaining a creature, and then we should slowly but surely gain an advantage on the board there. Nezahal Primal Tide is our only card in our deck that we cannot hardcast. It's a 7-mana 7/7 that cannot be countered. We have no maximum hand size, and whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, we draw a card. We can also, and this is the reason why we're playing this card, discard 3 cards to exile Nezahal Primal Tide, and then we can return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. What this means is essentially against decks like Jeskai Control, if our opponent goes to Wrath of God our board, we can discard 3 cards to take it off the field. If our opponent goes to -3 it with Teferi, we can discard 3. And it's basically a card that will just never ever stop coming. And you might say, well, if it's not hard castable, your opponents will just counter your Unburial Rites. But remember, we have Priest of Fellrites, and the Unearth on this is not counterable by traditional means from the Jeskai Control list. So as long as we've got a Priest in here, we can do the Unearth side of things to get Nezahal out there, uncounterable, and get it into play, smacking our opponent. Drawing cards every single time they try to remove it as well, which is super useful. Similar to the Serra's Emissary, we also have 2 copies of Elishnorn Grand Cenobite, 7-mana 4/7 with Vigilance, gives our creatures +2/+2, which means our Stitcher Suppliers and our Maya Tritons become sizable threats, as well as our other big creatures. And it gives creatures your opponents control -2/-2, so usually this prevents your opponents from establishing a board state. There's a lot of creatures in this format right now that have 2 toughness, so they just instantly die if our opponent plays them, which is super useful. And again, against decks like Elves, against decks like Goblins, this can just be an instant win for the most part. Maybe not so much as the Emissary, but Elishnorn's still very good and helps us close out games, which is why we're running it. Finally, Burning Rune Demon. Actually, not finally, but Burning Rune Demon, 6-mana 6/6 with flying. You name you pick 2 cards that don't have the same name. In our case, thanks to Priest of Fellrites, we can pick 2 reanimation spells. We pick Priest, we pick Unburial Rites. Our opponent puts one into our hand, the other into our graveyard. So one goes into our hand, so we can cast it and flashback it, or cast it and unearth it. The other goes into our graveyard, so we can flashback it and we can unearth it. So our opponent, either way, cannot prevent us from having reanimations several times over with Burning Rune Demon. So that's why we've got that card in here as well. We can also use it to put Croxer into the graveyard, which is super useful. Croxer just has that kind of recurring threat about him. That's basically the theme of our reanimation, is to have recurring threats constantly. This one makes your opponents discard whenever it enters or attacks, and if they discard a non-land, it's fine, otherwise they lose 3. So it gives us a bit of inevitability. Helps us beat 9 lives combo as well. 9 lives doesn't prevent life loss, so Croxer is a legitimate answer to that. It's also why we're running a 1-of Cataclysmic Gearhulk as well. This basically enters, and it allows us to choose artifact, creature, enchantment, and a planeswalker from among the non-land permanents, and then the rest gets sacrificed. So our opponent gets to choose, but in the case of like 9 lives combo, we just leave them with the 9 lives, and that allows us then to constantly tick up counters on the 9 lives itself. We can even like sack with Phyrexian Tower, reanimate it again to trigger it again if our opponent has a spare Solemnity in their hand, so that we can go again and do that. It's not too hard for us to get the 9 counters on 9 lives, as long as we've just got the Cataclysmic Gearhulk to help us along the way. But yeah, that is essentially the deck. This deck has been performing pretty well. I've been playing in the casual queue to start off with, and I went 10-2, and we're going to be playing it in the ranked queue today, because I think we can probably get away with it. We'll see what happens. I imagine a little bit more sweaty decks are going to be on on the docket today. We'll have to see. Lots of Tybalt's Trickery, no doubt. That card is just, it's getting a bit out of control now. It's probably about time it gets banned, but that's a conversation for another day. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video, and if you do, hit that like button, subscribe, and without further ado, let's continue. This video is brought to you by the generous support of our wonderful patrons and channel members that you see here. If you'd like to support the channel and get access to cool content like sneak peeks, bonus videos, polls on future content, or access to a personal deck critique from myself every month, then hit the join button down below, or check out the Patreon link in the description. With all that said, let's get into the gameplay. Alrighty, we're in. We've got a slow start, but a good hand. We're going to keep this one. We go Survive Triome, play Stitch the Supplier on turn 2, play a tap land. Basically just need to find a reanimation target with this. We've also got a Bone Shards, which we can use via sacking the Stitch the Supplier to get that going. Oh, hello. You're also quite good. Alright. Well, nothing to target just yet. Burning Rune Demons, our first target in the yard. Castle Vantress doesn't bode well too much for us. We need to find our Nether Hall for this matchup. So that's going to be annoying, for sure. More Bone Shards. Yeah, this one's... I mean, it helps us get rid of Teferis and things like that, but other than that, not doing a great deal for us. We could sack our Stitcher Supplier to try and find any of our good stuff. If we did it next turn, we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana. That would allow me to do the... what's it called? The Unearth from Priest of the Fellrites. So I think I'll wait on sacking Stitcher Supplier here. We could also just use it for the Bone Shards as well, so... all of these things are to be considered. So yeah, there's no reason to do it pre-combat. Let's get the Stitcher Supplier sacked. Let's see what we can find. Sheoldred. Alright, well. We're going to go for Unburial Rites. I think we'd just go for Sheoldred, as it gets back all of our other stuff anyway. And if it's countered, it was going to get countered anyway, regardless of what we picked. Yep. Mystical Dispute. Sure. Iteration for our opponent. Maybe they're just blue-red. If they're just blue-red, it's going to be hard for them to deal with a 6/6. That... are you kidding me? Really? Okay. I guess we're losing. Relic of Progenitus in the main. Exiles a card from our graveyard. It's going to be a Dragon Skull Summit. So the issue we face now is our opponent can just eat our graveyard completely. So this Unburial Rites doesn't do anything. These Bone Shards literally don't do anything regardless. I need a creature so I can hit this Teferi. I guess actually no, because I can discard with this, right? So we can definitely kill Teferi here. The other lands get untapped though, which is kind of annoying. So let's go after it, because if our opponent interacts with this, they might just tap out of Relic, and then we can Unburial Rites in response.
Let me know if you're up for
Cool. It might just be for the best that we go for Unburial Rites now, just to get to the Relic, get it out of the way, and then refill with Maya Triton. So, cracky Relic. Yeah, the amount of sideboard tech in there. Exiles a card from their graveyard. Sure, this chapel. They can exile Relic to exile all cards from graveyards. and save themselves the effort of doing what they just did. Alright, fair enough. It's the way they wanted to do it. It's the way it was done. Right. Narset, sure. Narset finds. More Narsets. So we gotta be careful when we use Faithless Looting and Thrilling Discovery. Both of those don't help. We're not gonna tap our Phyrexian Tower here. We're gonna go Maya Triton. Whiff. So if I sack Triton to do the tower, I could play the Triton. I would have 2 mana remaining. Doesn't really let me do anything. Do we just go after the... We go after the Narset with our Maya Tritons, I think. So let's just do this. Still whiffing. Yeah, we got our first graveyard hit, and then our opponent had their graveyard hate immediately. So they get to draw 2. Expressive Iteration could be worse, but it can find worse. It is the best card draw spell in the format. Alright. Also got Deafening Clarions. I've seen so many cards from their deck that I've not seen in 48 years. Well, we got a land. Great. Awesome. Gonna play them out, because eventually we get to the point where we can start just hard casting all of our threats. Now they've got a win condition in Castle Ardenvale. I think this game is over, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, the hard casting Shark Typhoon, that should say all it needs to say, really. Cycle. And scoop. Alrighty then, opponent goes first. Our hand is keepable. We can get Hellish Norn into the graveyard on turn 2. Opponent's on a red deck, so that should be pretty good for us. And we drew a Sheoldred as well, so that gives us our 2-card discard for Thrilling Discovery. So we just need this to find us a reanimation spell. So, Thrilling Discovery. Get rid of Norn and Sheoldred. Draw 3. Yeah, we just found more card draw spells. Could be worse. We're playing against Tybalt's Trickery. Yeah, definitely playing against Tybalt's Trickery. This format's all kinds of fun, right? They hit Trickery. Trickery hits. Trickery. Alright, they whiffed. If they got another land, which no doubt they do, and we've got more problems to deal with. Yeah, none of those help us, so we go... Dump that, dump that. Looting again. None of those help us, so we go... dump that, dump that. And... yeah, none of those help us either, so we go dump that, dump that. Wow. That's a hardcore whiff right there when we really needed it. So these aren't lands then. Because they needed that land to play the throws, and then they need a land in hand to retrace. That's good to know. Alright, let's see if we can get a Priest of Fellrights going. Let's dump, dump. Nope. Oh my god. I'm so bad today. Wow, I just need to get better at milling random cards. Alright, did you draw a land in your 90% land deck? You certainly did. There's Trickery. Less likely to whiff this time, but the hit can still be quite bad. Wow, they actually hit Trickery again. Haha, get wrecked. Yeah, whatever. Let's go Stitcher Supplier. Whiff again. Stitcher Supplier. finally hit a card that we actually want to hit. Alright, now we need to hit a land, and we've been milling those for the past 9 hours, so... time will tell whether or not that works out for us. Opponent goes for throws into Tybalt's Trickery. Please hit Trickery again. You deserve no less. It's an Emergent Ultimatum. Okay, well, they've milled a Sarah's Emissary, but I'm sure they'll have more of those. Got Shieldred in the yard, right? So you can have... well, we know that these aren't lands, so we're unable to give them Omniscience, so that goes back in. Emissary can be dealt with the Shieldred if we draw a land. The throws can just be anything, it could even be an Omniscience. Alright, let's see what you get. Magma Opus, totally fine. Alright, this game is still winnable. So they're actually going to ping off my Stitcher suppliers, which is wild. Gonna go for the mill plan, eh? There's an Unburial Rites. Alright, so I no longer need the land for the priest. Protection from what card types? You're gonna have to select creatures. It's the only one that makes sense to you, but it's the only one that doesn't work either. Because Shieldred reanimates ours while making them sack theirs. There's no targeting involved as far as I remember with this card. Each opponent, yeah. We're gonna name Sorcery. Fair enough. Alright. Shieldred, the Whispering one, comes in, makes them sack their 4/4 to start. How many trickeries have we hit so far? 1, 2... Buckle my shoe. We win the game. Wow. Well, that involves some extremely lucky RNGesus, but yeah. Basically, if they did hit the Sarah's Emissary, that's kind of like the ideal scenario for us. That's where Shieldred comes in. We also do have ways to deal with Ugin as such, because we have our own Sarah's Emissary. We can pick protection from Planeswalkers, which means they have to Ugin hit themselves in the face until they get to their ult, but while they're doing that, we have a 7/7 to control the board that way as well. We can do second Sarah's Emissary at that point to go after creatures, which means Ulamog can't hit our creatures or us. Well, it can still hit at us, but, you know, it at least buys us some time, and time is all we really need to buy against this deck. I think they only ever have 3 trickeries. 1, 2... Oh, this one has 4 trickeries. Alright. Makes sense. They've whiffed before, apparently. And hopefully they whiff forevermore. On to the next game. Alrighty, we're in, and... got an unfortunate hand. We can't turn 1 Stitcher Supplier into turn 2 Priest. But we're still going to keep this hand. We're going to go Priest, and then on turn 3 we're going to go Stitchers and Maya Triton, I think. That should reveal a creature that we can then reanimate. Otherwise, there's a Bone Shards here. If we draw a creature, we can do something with that as well. So, opponent on the play. What you got? Pretty immune to hand disruption, I would say. We don't really care if any of these individuals get taken. Like, this one's got an Unearth, that gets the job done just fine. Both of these are mill. Can't get rid of both. Bone Shards. Bit of creature removal, I suppose, or Planeswalker removal could be less than ideal to lose, but we got a Death Toucher, so most things are going to be covered. So, opponent... Fabled Passage of Mountain, so they're not playing Goblins. Could take a real punt at going for the Faithless Looting for a turn 2 Priest, but I don't think there's much point in doing that, to be honest. Seems too risky for very little likely payoff. Dragon Rage Channeler. Darcy. So, is it red-black, or what are we talking? I do kind of want to just kill this. And then play Stitcher Supplier. So let's go Stitcher Supplier. We'll do it in this order. Elishnorn and Burial Rites. Okay, so we've had the Nut Draw. Good to know. We're going to sack a creature, kill the Dragon's Rage Channeler, so they don't have their Delirium Enabler and whatnot. So our targets are Serra's Emissary and Elishnorn right now. It's hard to say which one's the most ideal. That is a Bone Crusher Giant. All we have to do to not care about that is go Maya Triton. And we could fill up the graveyard a little bit more with the Faithless Looting. Are any of our other reanimation spells going to be real good? I guess Sheoldred's pretty good. Yeah, we might as well. We're at 22. Let's go back down to our starting life total. So we do need a land. We cannot get rid of the Blood Crypt. I think that means Priest and Savai Triumph then. Keep the Thrilling Discovery to keep the ball rolling. Next turn on Burial Rites. See where we want to go from there. Absolutely turbo mega blocking the Bone Crusher Giant if they give us the option, but I doubt they would. So yeah, I'm not entirely certain what the name is here as far as Serra's Emissary is concerned. Like, that sorcery means Serra's Emissary can die, but is sorcery really the biggest threat on board? I would say probably not. Maybe we just start with an Elishnorn. Yeah, let's start with an Elishnorn. Gets rid of the Seasoned Pyromancer, shuts off the ability for them to use the token thing unless they've got aristocracy style things, but even if they've got those, they can't go on the board. Short of Bastion of Remembrance, I guess. And yeah, now we're ooh, Chandra. Okay.
When people start screaming, I know I'm on track.
Yeah. So it's like a red-black mid-rangey list then, isn't it?
Yep. You're going down.
Yep. Are you kidding me? What is with this this rank queue today? Good lord. Everybody's got main deck graveyard hate. It kind of makes sense to a certain point. So, like, nothing in my graveyard actually matters right now. That's something to be aware of, unless I'm casting it out of my graveyard. Which I could certainly do. Let's just get this Bone Crusher Giant off the table. I'm gonna go with Faithless Looting. And I was looking for a land, but didn't find it. Alright, Spare Elishnorn can probably go. And Faithless Looting can probably go. We've got Bone Shards here. We can discard a card to kill Chandra. Let's get rid of Priest. Keep the Unburial Rites as a 2-of reanimation spell that doesn't cost us life. Because against this particular deck, which seems to have a lot of burn and go wide, seems relevant. They do have Delirium online right now, so I guess that makes sense for the Soul Guide Lantern. Inquisition, can take my Thrilling Discovery. And then they are basically back on top decks. As are we, though. As are we. We do need another land, so let's go Faithless Looting from the graveyard, use the Soul Guide Lantern's lack of usage to our advantage. I like Priest making a 4/4. That increases the clock quite substantially and also gives us the reanimation later. So let's go Looting Unburial Rites. We're giving up a lot of reanimation, but we're almost getting to the point where we can just hardcast things as well, so less of a problem. Got our triple white for Sarah's Emissary. Like, Nezahal is the only card we can't hardcast. But yeah, now we've got creatures that are bigger than any of theirs. Probably altogether. Like, everything's getting -2/-2. And Season Pyro doesn't do anything. Is this, each opponent's graveyard? You probably want to go for Relic, though, right? I mean, it does the same thing when you use it to draw a card, but... I guess we can just take the card draw effect off of this, then. Oh, why don't we just do this? Unearth. If they don't use Soul Guide Lantern, we get an extra attack. Yep, totally fine. We're just looking for a land. We can refill our graveyard with reanimation targets and spells. Hit you for 8. Dead next turn. Make some dead tokens. And dead on board if they don't have a creature. Inquisition, not a creature. Land, also not a creature, and that'll do it. We got our land, so we could Burning Rune Demon. I'm not sure what we would pick with our Burning Rune Demon. Oh, they've got Hive of the Eye Tyrant. Well, now we get to figure out what we want to grab with our Burning Rune Demon, I suppose. Wasn't going to make a difference on combat there. I was going to tap out either way. Usually you pick your reanimations, your Unburial Rites, and your priests. In this case, we're going to go with, like, Croxer. And... well, Croxer Rites seems good. Yeah, you want Priest of Fell Rites and Unburial Rites as your options. That way you always have the option to reanimate, no matter what they pick. So that's why we got to go with the demon there. Pretty good though. Pretty nice showing. Elish Norn doing some serious work in this matchup. And yeah, really nice showing as well from Bone Shards, taking out a Planeswalkers for 1 mana. It's lovely. All right, on to the next game. Okay, we're in. We've got Maya Triton to start filling the yard, and Burial Rites as an option for reanimation, and we've even got a Go Wide Sweeper if we can get to turn 5. I imagine there's a reasonable chance we can get there. Depends on the matchup, of course, though. If it's another Tibalt's Trickery, we don't get past turn 4 usually. But who wants to play past turn 4 against Tibalt's Trickery anyway? Alright, Survive, Triumph, go. It's all of our check lands untapped. A mountain's always a good sign for us, I think. Short of it being Jeskai control and they found their 1 basic mountain. We got Priest and Elish Norn into the yard, so we've got an uncounterable Elish Norn on the way. Little bit of inevitability here. We're just going to go and play our Triumph tapped. Could keep it for the cycling, but I think getting to 5 mana is very important, at the very least. And we can also just start hardcasting our stuff as well, so... really no big deal. Is this actually Tibalt's Trickery? They just foretold a card. A mono red deck foretelling a card in Platinum? I've seen it all. Alright, let's... I think I'm just going to go for Rites here for Elish Norn. I was thinking going for Priest, because we've seen a lot of people running main deck Graveyard Hate, and therefore that's a good use of our resources there. Oh, it is Tibalt's Trickery. But also this coming after the Elish Norn means we get a hasty creature to work with, if we're not just dead here. Okay, that deals 5 damage and draws. That's a really awful hit for them. It's great for us. So it doesn't kill our Elish Norn, and we couldn't care less if it kills our Maya Triton. They draw 5, so they can spin the wheel again, of course. And no doubt they will. And discarding to hand size, 3-card discard. So they only use this to draw 2 cards and kill a creature. In a nutshell. Alright, there's a Stitcher Supplier. We're just going to go with a Burning Rune Demon here. And let's go with Croxer and Sarah's Emissary. We can cast them all, we can reanimate them all. Emissary names like Planeswalker. So we don't have to worry about Ugin so much. Ugin basically just has to ult itself completely. Throws into Trickery. They've even got the other discard for treasure card, the one that deals like 5 damage. The very unorthodox Trickery list. But when your deck does the same thing every single game, it's nice to spice things up. Loads of lands. Does mean that they can go with the throws again, because they hit the 4th land. No doubt they have at least 1 land in that hand. In fact, we know they do, because it's right here. Left it in hand with the Genesis Ultimatum. They just need to hit like an Ulamog or an Ugin. I don't think they've really got another hit that they can go with here. Magma Opus. Does that keep them alive, though? It doesn't kill any of my creatures. It gives them a 2/2. Which means they're not taking this 4 here. I could go with a Priest to add the 4. So they're taking 12. 3 for 5. Land drop is Croxer. But Croxer won't deal damage, most likely. Yeah, I think that bought them a turn, but they didn't want to play it out, so is what it is, I guess. On to the next one. Let's see if we can no longer have Tybalt's Trickery matchups. If I find one, I'll just auto-scoop it or not record it. So, yeah, on to the next one. Okay, opponent goes first. We've got Cryptic Command Sleeves. That's never a good sign, but we do have our Nezahal, so that is the card for this matchup if it is control. And it is. Alright, so we just need to find a way to get it into the yard and then get it reanimated, and we might stand a chance. Well, there's a reanimation. Now we just need the discard. You can keep the pressure going with Stitcher Supplies and Maya Tritons, of course. We also need 3 cards in hand when it comes to actually playing it out as well. So, Thrilling Discovery, Faithless Looting, Bone Shards when they've got a Planeswalker out or a creature. All of those are going to be pretty good for us. 2 lands. Well, I'm glad to get rid of those because they weren't going to help us. Frantic Inventory. This ranked queue has been wild today. Crazy amount of nonsense. Alright, so we're just going to probably cycle the Savaitrium. We know what we're trying to look for, so let's look for it. Fabled Passage. Yeah, this is where they hold up and they're counter magic for the rest of the game. We'll force them into a sweeper at some point with the 3 damage pings here, of course, but that'll be some time down the line. There's a looting. Alright, so now we just begin the I'm playing Nezahal every turn trick. Ooh, Croxer. We're going to get rid of Nezahal. We're going to get rid of Sacred Foundry. Then going to swing in for 3. And then play Croxer on end step with a nice lit chapel to play around Censor. Probably got like a lightning helix here or something. If they have graveyard hate, I'm gonna cry. Okay, they go to 13s, play around Censor. You can do that next turn as well with the Unburial Rites, plus the Untapped Blood Crypt. Cracks the Passage. Grabs the double blue. And discards a card. What are you going to go for? So we got the 3 cards in hand. We're going to have that next turn even if we play the Blood Crypt. So any non-creature spell, I believe. Yeah, draws us a card, and then we can discard 3 to exile it and bring it back on the next end step. So it dodges board wipes and it dodges Teferi Tucks and all of that stuff as well. And even if it doesn't, we've got basically an entire game plan about putting it back on the battlefield, so... What on earth? Have I just assumed that this is control all this time? Well, I still think Nezahal is going to be pretty useful here. If it is Flicker, then they've got, like, you know, things to draw me cards all the same. I'm just going to get in with my Death Touching individual here. When our opponent lets us. And yeah, like, we discard these 3 cards, and other than the Blood Crypt, everything wants to be discarded anyway. We've got the Croxer to use them as fuel. The Unburial Rites has Flashback. This is a reanimation target. All works in our favour. And we get the pick of the litter as well, because assuming they do have a board wipe or some sort of interaction with Nezahal, it's almost certainly going to draw us a card anyway. I'm trying to think what they could have, like a... Banishing Light effect on a creature. I don't imagine they'll be playing many of those, like a, what's it, Deputy of Detention. So there's Banishing Light. So we're going to make that whiff once they've targeted Nezahal. Bone Shards is quite nice. So discard 3. This one, this one, this one. Banishing Light has done nothing. This will come back on our end step. There it is. Alright. So we are going to swing with the team. Yeah, maybe the whole team. Give me some more Croxer Exile fodder. Not putting it on offer. Okay. So if they have a Wrath, I can't play any of my cards in hand. So I'm going to go with, I think, Croxer here. Maybe we could go Burning Rune Demon, actually. With Unburial Rites. That puts a card in hand as well. So with this, we get Priest of Fell Rites and Unburial Rites. Playing around Censor again. At this point, I don't imagine it's a card that they've got, but it's still worth playing around. Dovin's Veto. Draw a card. Thank you. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Opponent's 1 point away from death, so if we reanimated a Croxer, they can't discard a land, otherwise they'd die. Cavalier of Gales. Sure. Does not profitably block on Nezahal. So they've brainstormed. Gearhulk doesn't do anything. Do Do I have a draw that wins me the game? 2, 3... I don't think so. I think I'll just swing. And then play Croxer. So those 2 cards they put back, they get to scry away if they want to. Oh no, sorry, they shuffle and then scry. 2 to the bottom. Good sign for us. I'm gonna do a bit exiling here for the Croxer. Couldn't care less if it gets destroyed. Because we still have Nezahal on board regardless. Discards a creature. Okay. We draw. Thank you, Nezzy. And they scoop it up. Sweet. Not sure what they really draw into at that point. Like, if they had Settle the Wreckage, we draw and then we just exile Nezahal with the discard 3 option instead of the basic land option. It still comes back on end step. And then if they Wrathed again, I would draw a card, I would have 3 in my hand, and then we do the Nezahal thing again. It's really, really disgustingly hard to get rid of, and I love it. And yeah, this deck's been okay. I've come across a lot of people today running main deck Graveyard Hate, and some questionable cards at best. We beat Tybalt's Trickery twice, never saw it again actually, but yeah, that's not a matchup that you typically win either. I don't think there's much you can really do about that Trickery matchup, to be honest, except for just wait for people to stop playing it or it gets banned. One or the other. But yeah, this deck was real fun. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video, and if you did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Leave a comment down below what would be your reanimation target of choice. And yeah, take care and have a wonderful day.